What is going on, boys and girls? Welcome once again to the Real Life on the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast. We have a great show for you today. And give me a second here while I try to actually share this. If you are watching live, feel free to share this on a comment. I have Dwayne Walley, the founder for the TourneyX app. I'm really excited to have him here on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of tournament fishing as far as the CPR format, catch, photo, release, how he came about the idea of doing TourneyX, and how we've gotten to this place, and a little bit of how he played a major role in getting Bassmasters to buy into this and the struggles they had in the first year. I was very critical of some of the things that happened the first couple of seasons in the Bassmaster Kayak series. So it's nice to kind of get the backstory from Dwayne, and all the struggles that he had to do. I think he's, in my opinion, like an unsung hero in that aspect, because I know he had to, put up with a lot of things to make this work. And he was kind of like the de facto face of the Bassmaster Kayak series, which was not the plan. And I think he got some of the heat, in my opinion, for some of the things that went down that are not necessarily his responsibility. But I mean, he did everything he could and has done everything he can to make sure that the Bassmaster Kayak series is where it is now. We often think about how Steve Owens obviously deserves lion's share of the credit for what he's done. But I think when we're talking about unsung heroes, the huge shout out to Dwayne Walley for what he's done. So that's going to be the main focus of this episode today. Before we get into that episode, a couple of things they want to talk about: social media. So leave me in the comments, how many of you have gotten into this new thread app from Instagram? Like, I feel like that's Mark Zuckerberg's kind of like middle finger to Elon Musk for for their beef on Twitter. So I mean, it's kind of interesting. I've never got into Twitter. I got into Thread, and it's really a crapshoot. I don't know if I'll like it or if I'll keep doing it, but yeah, it's an overload of information. But if you have comments and questions for Dwayne Walley or myself, feel free to put it on our comment sections. We'll try to do our best to answer your questions. And that's pretty much it. Let's get Dwayne Walley on. Dwayne, how you doing, man?
I'm good, bud. How are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for taking the time to come up to the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast in the real life. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good. Yesterday, not so good. So it was pretty hot here today. Yesterday, as most of you might know or don't know, I have 2 or 3 jobs, and the day job actually is, I'm actually a maintenance electrician. Been doing that for quite some time, and man, some of those days at work, it's just, there's no AC in that plant that I work in, and man, yesterday was one of those days. I was working on one piece of equipment and it wouldn't work, and I go back and work on another piece of equipment, and it was a rough day. I'll be honest with you. I was hoping we get everything running so I could go take a break, but we made it through, and today was a little bit better day, but yeah, it is. So
let me ask you this. You're not the right there with the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Elon Musk of like the billionaires that are building apps, that's not.
Man.
I really thought that was the case.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm more of a put my pants on the same way everybody else does every morning. I'm up by 5 o'clock making my breakfast, headed to work for the day. Throughout the day, I'll get calls and messages from folks that are either, hey, how do I get on TourneyX? Or, hey, I might have a problem submitting a fish, or hey, this is working, or that we appreciate all you're doing. You get those comments during the day, and it's really appreciated. But there's some days where people call and they're having a little bit of an issue with this or that, or they're just new to the app and don't know how to use the app. And so I stop, try to pull over to the side somewhere, maybe when I go take a break or what have you, and I answer their questions and get them back on the path. So people always say, man, your service is great. And honestly, we just discussed this a little bit backstage, that our service is, we strive to be as the best we can be, in everything we do. It doesn't matter what it is. And I think people in general need to be that way. Whatever it is you do your best, and that's what we try to do at TourneyX. If, someone's got a problem with this, problem with that, just message me, but give me a little bit of time. Let me find me a stopping point, and I'll message you back. We'll get you taken care of. You mentioned a while ago about heroes. I don't consider myself a hero. I consider myself part of a community, part of an industry that is ever evolving and ever changing. And I think that, and we discussed this earlier about how we used to do things 10 or 12 years ago, from SD cards to putting the SD chips in a Ziploc bag and putting your name on it, handing it to the tournament director, and then waiting 3 or 4 hours to know the outcome, whether you won or you didn't win. Now that is a lot of excitement in that. I grant you that, because that person still has to wait to see who's going to win, who's going to lose. But I think that we can still have that with TourneyX and with some of the apps out there available now. But I don't consider myself a hero, but I appreciate the kind words. I really do. So.
Yeah, and to clarify, I mean, we use the words hero. We throw them around like nothing, and we understand there's people that are actual heroes, that save people's lives and all that, and obviously we don't want to minimize that. But I think in the sense of like bringing, and we'll talk about this. I've like a lot of the tournament anglers, and for those that have the podcast or social media, we were talking about this in the pre-recording. Some of us, including myself, were very critical of Bassmaster Kayak Series the first couple of seasons. And a lot of it just had to do, not that we hated the establishment. It wasn't nothing against Bassmaster per se. It was more about, we know how important Bassmasters can be to the overall growth of the kayak fishing industry, but we felt like they weren't using their full resources. Like it was more like redheaded stepchild. Like I think Fluke Master said it on my podcast a couple of years ago. It's like we were treated like this redheaded stepchild when it comes to the Bassmaster Kayak. And there's been some changes, both from the top all the way to the bottom, and now we see where we have always thought that this could have gotten. And I know we think of, like I said, we think about Steve Owens, what he's doing, but there's a lot of things that went behind the scenes. And I know you were put in a situation where I would see it, going back to the first time you were on the KBM podcast as the kind of default tournament director for the Bassmaster Kayak Series. And, John Stewart was there too. And my thought was like, Dwayne doesn't want to be in this situation. Like he wants this, but it seems like he's not comfortable in this role. And you're the founder of TourneyX, not the tournament director for Bassmaster Kayak Series. Tell us about how did it come up for you to bring this to Bassmaster day one to where we are today?
So day one, I had a particular individual, and honestly, I can't remember his name right now, and I'm so sorry for that. But he was a bait. He sold baits for a living or something like that. I can't remember what it was, or made baits. But anyway, he actually introduced me to one of the guys that was with Bassmasters. And he kept saying, "Hey, you need to be involved with, you'd be involved with Bassmasters." And so I can't remember what it was, but I think it was at the KBF National Championship on the way to Caddo Lake back in, what was it, 19 or 18? I can't remember the year, but it was when they had it at Caddo Lake. And on my way over there, this particular person had gotten a small group of the Bassmaster higher ups to join in on this phone call. So for 2.5 hours, or maybe an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, I was driving to Caddo, and I was on this call with these higher up managers with Bassmaster. Now, this was not the meeting in Birmingham. This was the pre-meeting to see, if there's
the meeting of the meeting,
the meeting of the meeting, to see if there's any interest in it at first. Because if there's no interest, it's just going to be, And so, for an hour and a half, we discussed CPR and what it could bring to Bassmaster, what it could bring to an organization like Bassmaster that's not in that industry. They're not in the kayak business. And so we had this meeting, and and the funny thing was, I talked to a guy after the meeting was over, and he told me, he says, I can't believe it didn't go. He said, I can't believe it lasted an hour and a half. He said, typically when these guys talk, they talk 15 minutes, they're done. He said, so what you have out there was something of an interest to these guys, and they could foresee something building, taking it to another level. So anyway, we had this discussion. After the discussion, we, I don't know what it was. It was probably 2 or 3 weeks later. Got a phone call from Bass. It was from John Stewart and Mr. Bruce. He was over Bassmaster at the time. And all these guys called us up and said, hey, we'd like to have a meeting with you. And I was like, I told my wife, and I think I just wrecked my truck that weekend over at Gunnersville. So I didn't even have a truck. It was in the shop. And I got a call, and they wanted to meet us on a Monday morning. And so I took a vacation day from my day job. And my wife and I, we got up at 4 a.m. We left the house at around 4:15, 4:30 a.m. and drove to Birmingham. It's about a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive. We got there about 8:30 that morning, sitting in the parking lot of Bassmaster. And I'm going to tell you what, I was sweating. I was,
bullets.
I'd never been in a meeting like this before. And I didn't, we're stepping into a realm that we had no clue where we were going. My wife we were talking about, she says, you're crazy for doing this. I said, well, yeah, I know. But I mean, if we don't try, we won't know. And so we walked in the meeting, sat down, and we had about a 3-hour meeting. And we ate lunch, we visited, we talked, we discussed, we made a plan. And they bit. And so, and I think that they saw a purpose for the kayak industry, for the kayakers. There was a purpose there. They saw this community, that we had a bond, and that they wanted a piece of it. They wanted to, because everybody knows that Bassmaster, they make money on registrations, on subscriptions. That's where their money is. So if you pay the $15, that goes straight into their kitty. That's $15 a year. So that's their bread and butter. And so it helps pay for all those people at work and all the setup and tear downs of all the events around the country. It's all in that big bank. But anyway, so we had our meeting. And when we came out of that meeting that day, it was very positive. And my wife looked at me again. She says, I don't know how we're supposed to do this. And I said, well, we're going to figure it out. I said, I'll come up with an idea and find out where we're going to have the tournaments around the country. We'll have, 4 tournaments, 5 tournaments, whatever it is. I said, I will hire tournament directors in these locations, much like other organizations have done in the past. I'll just find some people, hire them that have good TourneyX skills. They know about TourneyX and this, that, and other. I said, and we'll just ask them to work for us, and we'll pay them and take care of them. So it worked out for the first year. The second year, we started getting a lot of people that wanted to make a change to that. And the change was that they wanted to see one person instead of 4 or 5 different people at these events. And I can understand that because people they get comfortable with that, with a one person show. Okay. And they know their answers. They know how they're going to be treated. They have that. They want consistency. That's the thing they wanted, is the consistency. And so, it was a while. And so, fast forward to today, Steve had stepped up and said, hey, you want to be part of it? I know there was an interview process of a couple different directors that they were looking at. Steve, like I said, Steve stepped up, and man, I'll tell you, he's doing a great job. He's on the ball. He's taking care of getting these lakes mapped out, getting the time frame set up. He's doing a great job. He really is. So that's kind of the whole story. But Yeah, was I nervous? Heck yeah, I was nervous. I was like, I don't know what I'm getting into. But you know what? If you don't get out there and do it, you'll never know.
And that's one of the things that I think gets lost in the shuffle, because you're the tournament, you're the founder of TourneyX, right? So your job is to provide a service, and you get paid for that. But here you are actually running this trail, kind of like de facto tournament director or organizer, because now you have to find lakes. You're doing all the job and delegating a lot
Right.
of the job as well,
Right.
hiring, but you're going way above and beyond what you were, what your job description is.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about, take TourneyX, well, we think of, Dwayne Walley's in his office just looking at the pictures, making sure the app runs well, but that is not the case. You were doing a lot of things that most people would have said, no, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not getting paid enough to do other people's work. Where you see it like an investment in the future, in my opinion. And correct me if I'm wrong. You saw it like, if I can get Bassmasters to buy in on this, even if I have to do more work than
On the front end.
on the
Yep.
front end, it's gonna set up the future for the kayak fishing industry or kayak bass fishing industry.
Well, I mean, that's with any organization. Think about it, though. I mean, it's look at where we were. Look at where we were 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Like I said earlier, we were taking pictures with a digital camera and putting them in a Ziploc bag and handing them to the directors. I remember that day vividly. I remember 2015 was one of the first tournament we had at Kentucky Lake. But now here we are, with what we're doing now. It's seamless. I mean, guys sign up. They never have to really leave the comfort of their house. They show up to an event. They fish. They place high or low. It does, whichever way. And they can bring home a good check, and not have to wait. It's so funny to see 2,000 and 2,500 fish come in a weekend.
Yeah.
And there's no waiting. It's over. It's done. As soon as the clock hits that number, it's finished. And, back in the day, it was 3, 4, 5 hours you had to wait for the results or the next day, but, man, it's just awesome to see how fast things can take place now.
So take me down memory lane here. When did the idea of building TourneyX came? Like, when did you think like, this might be a good idea? Was there another app out there before you even decided that you were going to do this, that you maybe said, oh, this is a good idea, I can improve it? Or was this just out from scratch that you built this?
So I just started kayak fishing. I want to say it was around 2013, I believe, 2012, 2013. And I was fishing just for fun, and I wasn't even competitive fishing. Now, I used to compete back in the day, back in the 90s, bass boat fishing. And so then I sold my bass boat to raise a family. And then, just here, like I said, recently, we got back in. What's up, Frank? So we just got back into fishing. And so instead of going out and buying a bass boat, I bought a kayak. I started watching the show 30 Miles Out. I'm talking about over in Texas. So I was watching Ty Sutherland and those guys going out to the rigs and fishing. I said, man, I'd like to do that one day on a kayak. I said, that looks like it's a great adventure and this, that, and other. So I got into it. And so me and a friend of mine, we were fishing at one of our local lakes out here. And it was back in October 2014, I think it was, maybe September. And so we were kicking around the ideas about, tournament fishing and this, that, and other, and what would we do with the fish. And there again, you just mentioned that about another app. I can't remember when that date was or when, but I do know that Angler had either existed or was being built in and around the same time that we built ours. And kudos to Mike Christopher. He's a super, super nice guy. I called him a couple of days ago, and he's going to be out at ICAST, so I hope to get to visit with him. He's got some roots over in Mississippi from where I'm raised, and so he's just a super, super nice guy to visit with. And so, but anyway, so back in the day, he had his app, and we were just forming something. We didn't know what we were getting into, had no idea. I had no programmer. Now, I didn't program TourneyX, just so we know. It was more of just a vision of an idea. So I had to source out a guy here in town, and we sat in a Cups coffee shop and doodled on a piece of paper these ideas about how we would put these pages together on a website to make the same work. And it started building and started forming and started, I took money out of my own pocket and threw it in there, and we just started cranking out some code. And our app didn't develop until the second year, possibly. It was around the second year when we started doing the app, because everybody said, hey, we need an app. And so we just kept reinvesting and putting money back into the business. And so 2014 is when we started. 2015, March of 2015, we had our first concept tournament, which was the KBF. It was a KBF Open series at Kentucky Lake, and they were running a 2-day event that year. A lot of people probably remember that, but we didn't even have the 2-day concept together. We actually had to fish one day and then another day, and we just tallied them up and added them in a spreadsheet, and that was the winner. But the cool part was, in 45 minutes, it was over and done. It didn't take 3 hours or 4 hours to tally up the winners. So it was a good run. All we've had to do now is just get better and better and better at what we do. So, yeah.
By the way, before I go on to my next one, just want to recognize the people that have commented on YouTube. Solidiero. Oh, Soldier of Dirt. I'm sorry. 81. Thank you. Sorry about that. But my Spanish was kicking in. Commenting, Pat Hanning, Johnny Maddox, Curtis, Albert Rock, and Frank Provolone. Thank you for your comments. And, everybody is just, kudos to you and what you've done. Frankie loves to joke with me. He says, "Sup, Ricardo." That's how old Frankie is. He's referencing Ricky Ricardo from the I Love Lucy. God, I can't say he's too old, because if I can recognize that joke or that reference.
No, Frank's not that old. He's a baby, man. He's a baby.
But thanks for everybody's commenting. And again, if you have any questions, and I'm sure Dwayne appreciates the love you're showing for him. So we really.
And if it wasn't for these guys right here and everyone, of course, on TourneyX, we wouldn't exist, and we certainly appreciate that. It's it is a community. It is a let's help each other type of community, and that's what we do. We all have our differences. That's okay. That's the way we were built. But in the end, it's all about enjoying life, enjoying fishing, enjoying kayak fishing, and taking care of each other. So it's good stuff.
One thing that I wanted, and I'm going to start with an apology, Dwayne, because we didn't talk about this, but you just mentioned something that reminded me something that happened. And I wanted to get, as much as you can, your honest reaction. Now, a few years ago, there was the KBF National Championship, which, not blaming anybody, not blaming Chad Hoover or anybody else, but there was a huge mix-up. And it was a mess. The payouts were a mess. And, a lot of finger pointing from the KBF side was that I felt like it was like, oh, it's TourneyX. Like, it seems like nobody at KBF kind of really wanted to take responsibility for the whole mess. And there was a lot of finger pointing, and eventually an abrupt decision, in my opinion, that went into, okay, we're switching to Fishing Chaos. Looking back at that, and again, I apologize. We didn't talk about the pre-recording. I know I'm coming out of left field, and maybe you don't want to talk about it, but I have to ask you, how did you feel at that time? Knowing the KBF was like monthlies, with all their tournaments, with the big showings at their national championship. Bassmaster, I don't think was still, or maybe was just at the beginning. That was a huge hit on the business side of it. How do you take it personally and on the business side of it?
Well, I know things happen for a reason. Let's just say that. Okay. Did we have some hiccups? Yes. Did they have some hiccups? Yes. I'm not going to point any fingers on anything here on national broadcast, but I think that it worked out for the best. Okay. That they found a new home at a different app, and that we are able to maintain and keep going the direction we're going. One thing I will say is that, and this is what anything that anybody does, is that you make your path and you stick by your path. Okay. It and just like fishing, if you go fishing, you never leave fish to find fish. All right. That's what's always been, that's always been with me. If you're on fish, never leave them, unless you just don't, it's not working out for you. It's no different in business, no different in other things. You need to just have your path, stay focused, and keep going the way you're going. And so what we actually did is we caught another gear and we just kept going. Okay. I didn't ask him to leave. I didn't tell him to leave. He left us, and that's fine. So we just hunkered down and we dealt with what we had and we rolled on. And I think we're a much better company now. We're a much better app now than we were back then. We've made a lot of really good changes. We're coming up with a lot of good ideas, but I don't have any of those. The ideas that we're putting in right now, we're going to put in motion here and we talked about TourneyX being a tool. Mm-hmm. I don't want to clutter our app up with nonsense stuff. There are things in other apps that just behooves me why you'd even have them on an app or have our fishing app. I wanted something that will help the anglers to make their user experience even better. That's what I'm trying to make. So back to your question. I hope I answered it well enough that it happened. It happened for reasons it happened. And like I said, he chose to leave and go somewhere else. And that it was okay by us. We just basically just put our heads down and started grinding and kept right on going. So.
No, and I appreciate your honesty. I was looking forward to more of a challenge or a cage match, but that's I'm just joking. I'm just joking with that. But how worried were you in the sense that, okay, now it's a big chunk of your business? Were you worried at some point it's like, and the finger pointing at TourneyX, it might scare off other people from investing in TourneyX? Was there a real worry that you might lose everything?
You know what? I'm going to say that there were a lot of supporters out there that called me and wished me, I don't know, not really wish, but they would call me and they would support us and say, it's okay. You're going to be fine. And I can name 5 of them right here off the hands, but I'm not going to name them, but I can. And they're good friends. Sorry about that, but they're
my bad. I just went down the wrong pipe. I'm sorry.
So they're really good friends of 5 or 6 of them that they just stayed with me the whole time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we would talk about it. I mean, honestly, we got to have people to talk to, right? Yeah. So I had really, really dear friends that I would call and just to visit with and talk about these things and talk about, oh, am I going to be able to make it? Are we going to lose a lot of money? Are we going to lose a lot of income? We're going to lose people. And the biggest answer was they didn't think we were. And that if anything were to happen, we might actually increase because of some of the other things that were going on. Okay. So I didn't really, did it worry me? Sure, it worried me. Anything's going to worry you when you get into something like that. But we just, as I said, I had a really good support system. A lot of anglers reached out to me. That's what we do. Like I said, as a community, we just visit, talk, we get through this and we go on. And that's what we did. So I appreciate those and those people for doing that. And it made me a better person for sure. And honestly, I breathe a little easier at night, to be honest with you. I sleep better. So
yeah, and no shots and everything, but we see how somebody took a decision to go to Fishing Chaos and now they're kind of like on their way down, and yet TourneyX seems to be rising and moving the way up. I think, and this is just personal opinion, and you don't have to comment on this if you don't want, but I feel like a huge headache was removed for you. Like now you can focus your attention on bigger and better things because you're not distracted by something or someone that is just, distracting you from. I think in a way it was holding you back. Looking back at it, I think KBF held you back in ways that now you're like, okay, now I don't have to deal with what I had to deal with. And now I can focus more on growing and putting attention to more, I think, organic growth. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And we've always focused on the organic side. We like the slow growth. We don't like to get too big too fast because it can crumble on you. And I think that's, and as I said earlier, you just have to, have a path, have a journey in mind, have that outlook, and keep reaching for more. And man, I'll tell you, there's just been so many people out that have reached out to us, and even some of the new groups. I'm not sure that I'm sitting there thinking, was Frank and them? I don't think Slay Nation was with us back then when it happened. But man, they came on board, and I'll tell you what, Frank is super. Do you know Frank? I mean, you have conversations?
Oh yeah,
has he been on the show?
Yeah, he has. I bring him every year. Every year, Frank is a character.
He really is. He is so fun to be around. But yeah, I mean, people like Frank and people like that are just great support systems. They really are, and always positive and always pushing you forward. So we appreciate that.
What are the challenges? What goes behind the scenes on tournament? Is it as simple as just Dwayne sitting back on his couch, drinking a beer, and just judging fish, or there's a lot more to it? When lines are in on any tournament, especially on a national trail, what's the day like with Dwayne Walley when Bassmaster and Hobie BOS are having tournaments?
Well, the day for me, as you know, we don't judge fish. Okay. TourneyX is just the platform. So thank you, Frank. Appreciate that, buddy. So we're just a platform. So all these organizations, they have their own judges. That's just part of the deal. So what people are basically paying us for is to have the app and to use the app and keep all the data up and all that. That's what we're getting paid for. But like you're on a day-to-day basis for me, Saturdays and Sundays are booked typically. Okay. I work Monday through Friday on my day job. And then I work Saturday and Sunday on TourneyX. And then every night, what people don't realize is that around 10:30, in about 2.5 hours, my programmers come online, and we pay them full time. And so I've got programmers coming online at around 10:30 at night, and I'm up till about 11:30, 12 o'clock every night. Then I get up at 5 a.m. in the morning to go to work. So I'm getting about 4.5, 5 hours of sleep every day. That's about all I get. But then on weekends, especially when the Hobie BOS is running, or especially when Bass is running, or a lot of the big events, when I say big, as in 100, 150, 200 angler events, I'm generally sitting in front of the computer at 5:30 in the morning waiting for the events to start. So I make sure that the app's running. I make sure that the fish are coming in. I make sure if there's any problems with anyone, they can call me and message me, and I'll help them out as quickly as possible to get them on their way. Now, once that's going and everything's kind of flowing properly, I'll chill out. I might go fishing myself. But typically on Saturday evening, I'm fishing when everything's starting to come back down and everybody's, finishing up their events. I'm going to put my boat in the water to go fishing to take a little break for the day. But that's my Saturdays and Sundays. And so then I just rinse and repeat every Monday through Friday, and then Saturdays and Sundays. So I don't have a whole lot of time off. So, but as I said, the organizations are the people that actually judge the fish. They take care of all the back end stuff. And typically I'm working with the directors or working with the judges, as they need, and the anglers, they'll call me up. Hey, I've got a fish that won't submit, or service is bad and we're having some problems with this. What do I do? And so we answer those questions, and help as best we can. So.
How frustrating is it? I know for like the Bassmaster Kayak series on Saturday at Possum Kingdom, about 5 minutes before deadline to submit the fish on day one, Steve Owens sends the email out. At least that's when we got to read it. Maybe he sent it out earlier, but it says we're having problems. TourneyX will let you, submit your fish. I think it was till like 6 p.m. How frustrating is it for you, and how often does it happen that the app crashes, or there's something goes wrong that you're like, oh my god, this could turn into a nightmare real quickly?
I can give you a couple of examples about what happened, and one was during Possum Kingdom. We were having a bunch of cell service issues. Did you fish Possum Kingdom?
I did.
Okay, so I don't know whether you had it or not, but there was a lot of cell service issues.
Yeah,
okay?
It was. And
so what was happening is, and I don't mind telling you because it's no secret, but when you would submit a fish through TourneyX and it was circling and trying to submit because of the cell service, it would actually double submit that fish twice. So it was going in and it was going in again. And we thought we had that fixed a year or two ago, and we did. but not in this aspect because it was something to do with the cell service. It was really weird. I'd never experienced this until Possum Kingdom. So that night, I actually got programmers involved in it on a weekend, which they don't work weekends on me, but I got them involved that night. We started trying to figure out what was happening, how it was going about, and what do we do to prevent it. So Monday morning after Possum Kingdom, we just basically tried to get through the day. Okay. So I was on the phone with their judge and not as much Steve, but with the judge, of course, or the judge for that event. And so I was trying to help them find the duplicates and get those taken out quickly so we can keep running the system. So we knew what the problem was. Now we just got to find the fix for it. And so Monday, actually Sunday night, when my programmers came online, we hopped in there and figured out what the problem was, started doing some indexing and this, that, and other, and we fixed the problem. So it's fixed now. But there are days where, yeah, I'm this beard right here gets even grayer and grayer and grayer. Yes. And you're going to have those. I mean, there was one morning where the site went down. I mean, literally, I didn't even know it. I woke up and the site was down. I got phone calls. And like 15 minutes before the kickoff time, we got it back up and running. And so you're just going to have those days. It's mechanical. It's electrical. It's going to happen. And I apologize now before it ever happens again, because it's going to happen. I just don't know when.
Yeah. We're a slave to our own devices in that aspect. Yeah.
So I have charts. I'm watching my chart. I'm watching my CPUs. I'm watching all my servers, and I keep up with those daily to make sure everything's operating, efficiently. And so I'm always doing that, on top of looking for new options for the TourneyX app. So yeah, it's a 24-hour job. It really is.
What makes it worth it for you? Like you have your day job, and now you have TourneyX, and it really is like you're the epitome of what I've always heard. The more you get involved on the business side of fishing, the less you actually get to fish. Like content creators will say that all the time. Tournament directors, tournament organizers say, like, you think you're getting into this, cool, I'll get a job in the fishing industry, I'll get to fish for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Completely the opposite. I actually don't get to fish the places that I want to go fish.
No.
Because even if I do go to fish, I have to do a shooting and I have to use a bait that I maybe, have to, sponsor or something like that. It's not even the type of fishing that I want to do.
Right.
So for you, what makes this worth it? When you go to sleep at night, do you think like, man, doing this is worth it? What is it for you?
Some of the comments I get from the anglers that appreciate what we're doing, it keeps me going. The comments I get from the directors that say, man, this has made our life a whole lot easier. That keeps me going. Okay. Now on the other side, there's a downside. There's those days where you're like, you want to throw your freaking hat in the air and just walk away. You know what I'm saying? Just give up. I have those days. And if people think I don't, then, you do. Okay. There's days I just want to why did I do this? Why did I get into this? But there's more of the good days than there are the bad.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going. Okay. Believe it or not, I love to hear from the anglers. I love to hear from directors. I like to hear that we're doing a good job. And I have some great testers out there that are just anglers themselves. They're taking time away from, they take time away from work sometimes to help me test my apps. They've been doing it this past week. That keeps me going. That lets me know that they're interested. They always tell me, anything you need me to do, just let me know. We're there for you. That keeps me going. Honestly, I would love to quit my day job and do this full time. And at some point in time, I think I can. As we talked earlier, there's some few things that I'm just trying to work out and figure out how we can accomplish those things, and that I can put more time in the TourneyX and make it a little bit better than what it is. So yeah, I think it's just the positivity, from the anglers, from the directors, from the people, moms and dads watching the website, looking at, 900,000 page views a month. People are looking at the website. So we're almost hitting some millions a month, which is phenomenal, but it's cool to know where we are, where we came from, where we are now. So yeah, it just keeps me rocking along.
Yeah, you definitely. I think I said this. There was one time where you were on the OG show in Paddle and Fin, um, and I made a comment, and I know you appreciated the comment, but I said it then about 2 years ago, and I say it now. When it comes to when I'm like every American sports fan, we
Mhm.
love legacy. We talk about legacies. We talk about Hall of Fame. We talk about stats. We talk about all those things, and I really honestly, Dwayne, I'm not saying it because you're here, because if you remember the comment, I said this about 2 years ago. When it comes down to kayak fishing, I know it's a new sport and there's no Hall of Fame or anything like that, but when we talk about the Mount Rushmore of kayak fishing, not just people that are, you know, have great success in tournament like Russ Snyder, Cody Milton, uh, Christian Fisher, but people that have actually got this to the next level. And we look at what TourneyX has done and what you did with Bassmaster Kayak Series. It is honestly safe to say there is no Steve Owens is not in this position to save Bassmaster Kayak Series if it wasn't for what you did, that pitch. We cannot understate what you have done to make this work and got it to where it is now, and everything that stacked any growth from here on, it's credited in, and I say this again, you're in the Mount Rushmore of kayak fishing when it comes to where we are now and where we're headed.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. It means a lot. But I can't, you can't, none of us can do it without each other. You know what I'm saying? I will go back and say this. If it weren't for the AJs, if it weren't for the Steve Fields, if it weren't for the Steve Owens, if it weren't for Vinny Ferrari, if it wasn't for the Frank Polifrone, if it wasn't for Provolone, yeah,
Provolone,
the cheesehead. If it weren't for those people that have, man, look, they have an outlook. They know they have that path already set, right? They know, as well as you and I know, they know where this is going, and they put forth that much effort, just like I do every day, right? And so I appreciate the comments, I really do, and I appreciate you thinking that highly of me, and I really do. But I, as I said earlier, I put my pants on just like you do, and we're just here for a short period of time in this world, and I'm hoping one day that this will be something bigger and better down the road. I was talking to a bass boater just a couple of days ago. He came by the house, picked up a battery, and he fishes from a bass boat. He point blank told, and he always bass fish out of his boat. He told me point blank, he says, "We're killing these fish."
Yeah.
Every day. And I didn't think I'd ever hear that from him. He said, "We're literally killing these fish." He said, "What you got going on is a great thing." But he's only one man, and there's no way that him by himself is going to change the mindset of people to go doing what we're doing. However, he said it can be done in a bass boat, it can be done in a kayak. He said, and it would be better for the fish population. But and I never thought I would have heard that from him. But it's kind of cool to hear that it's all this mindset. It's this change, and until we can, and I'm not a tree hugger. I shoot deer and I eat fish. Okay, and so.
You don't eat bass, though. Just playing with you. I'm going to put you in the spot.
I will say this, though, and I'll say this. I'm going to say it straight up. When I see fish,
don't get canceled, Dwayne.
But when if you see fish laying on the back of a tailgate of a pickup truck, it does kind of sting a little bit. Okay. Yeah. If it doesn't, then you know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand.
But I know people eat them, and I get it. I will eat a few bass, but I'll eat the small ones, the little 12 inchers, because people want them caught out of their ponds because they're taking over. I get that. But it's still in all, it's, those big ones, those big ones. It's like, those need to be swimming somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, that's what keeps me going. It's the positivity. It's the feedback. It's the, where are we going next? It's all those questions that, and I'm over here thinking, okay, where do we go next? What do we do? What do we make better? What do we make smoother, faster? How do we make it safer on the water for people? So we're always thinking of different ideas, and we get those ideas from anglers, and directors. So.
Let me make a point here about that because and actually shout out to Alex Rudd from Alex Rudd Fishing and Drew Gregory. They were both I was listening to their live show on last week, and they made Drew Gregory and both Alex made a good point. When you consider this basketball tournaments, I mean, there's especially when they get put into this live well, rocked around the whole lake, get put into a bag, then the waiting and all that, and even local tournaments, there is a mortality rate that nobody talks about,
Mm-hmm.
and it does affect because obviously they're getting the top, unless it's like Lake Fork, which is different, but they have slot tournaments, but most lakes out there, they're getting they're each one is getting their biggest 5 fish, and those are the ones that are suffering. It's not the 12 inches, the 14-inch.
Right.
So in this case, in basketball, it's not the 2 or 3 pounders that are the ones that are getting affected. It's the older 5, 7, 8 pounders that the ones that getting that high mortality rate. Of course, because it's the age and the wear and tear of just getting them out of a lake into a weighing station, then putting them back. I'm going a long-winded with this, but to get to the point, no, it's so inherited in our DNA for bass fishing that we always, even kayak anglers, we want to know like, oh, what's the weight on it? Like
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing about measuring the fish and going by that at the beginning, and it's kind of changed a little bit, but the beginning was more a nuisance in the sense that, well, we're a kayak, we don't have a live well, we can't weight it, which is what we want to do, but so by default we're doing this nuisance process of measuring it and submitting a fish but I see a change now, a change in culture, and I think conservationists, it's getting that conversation now where we think about, hey, if we want to have long-term success of not just tournament, but enjoying bass fishing, there has to be a change. We see MLF making those changes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's not as popular as the Bassmaster because they don't have that roll up into the big stadium with the trucks and the glitter boats and lifting the bass, which the crowd goes wild. But I mean, do you think this is something that can translate the CPR format that eventually will get implemented in some, if not all, basketball tournaments?
I think that I've been saying this for the past 2-3 years, but I think that what's going to happen is I think the government's going to get involved if they're not already starting to be involved, which we see that. We see it in California. We see it in Colorado. And a lot of people will
see it in Texas here in some like Lake Fork.
Yeah. Well, even Lake Fork and other places. I know like Pueblo for 2024, there's not going to be there won't be any fish caught unless it's done CPR. But I think they're going to see the improvements on these, and I really think that the government is just going to ramp that up. I think I mean, I can't put a date on it or a time on it. I wish we knew. Then we know kind of where the end's going to be or where the beginning of the end or whatever it's going to be. But still, what I'm trying to say is that I still think that 3 to 5 years, maybe we keep saying that, but 3 to 5 years, maybe we're going to see a huge change, a shift to where these, with the heat and I mean, this freaking heat is unreal,
Yeah.
I mean, Lake Fork, you can pull the fish in the boat, you take a photo and you're going to release it. You just can't possess it. You can't put it in a live well. That's possession, I believe, is what they consider it. So using an app like TourneyX is perfect for that. You can catch any fish there in that lake you want. I really believe that eventually the shift's going to go that direction. Now, who will they use? I don't know. I hope they use TourneyX. I hope that TourneyX gets to the point where, that's the go-to. That's what we hope for. But I just believe it's going to happen soon. Just don't know when.
I think it has to be, and not to put Bassmasters into the spot, but it's not. It has to be a sacrifice. And I think and alluding to what you said, I think that's why the governments have to step in, because it is a huge, when you look at the Bassmasters, that's their big, the classic That's the big attraction. That stadium feels. So for them to take that away from the fans and give something that the fans are maybe not interested because they're not that excited about it, it has to be either, a conscience that decision that we're going to have to sacrifice a little bit in the investment. And I get it. They're a business. And we all know we all know in this, I see it in the airline industry when I used to work in the airline industry and in every type of business. Companies are not going to take a conscious decision to lose a lot of money.
No.
Unless it means that they're going to gain a lot of money further. It's not until the government says, okay, we need to regulate this. Otherwise, this is not going to be sustainable. Right. And that's where you see the kind of like force of hand. Okay, we're going to change this. But I don't think the culture, the bass fishing culture wants that. But I think it's a necessary kind of sort of evil, just put it that way. Yeah. That we have to, plus I think it's less cheating, in my opinion, when it comes to bass boat. For example, I know kayak fishing is different because we don't have cameras on our boat, but when you go to a bass boat tournament, the Bassmaster MLF, there's a camera there. But for those that other tournaments that don't have cameras, there's not that, well, we're going to stick a couple of, 8-ounce weight into this walleye. Make it, it's like this is the measurement, and if you can look at the board and make sure the board is not altered, then it's pretty much a done deal.
Yeah. Well, the cool part is they can do both in these, like especially these tournaments that are going around the country right now, bass boat tournaments. They could do both. The funny part is they can still catch fish, put them in a live well, and they can still do a measurement tournament as well. So, and I discussed that with the same person the other day that came by the house, and he never really thought about that. So I think I go back to the mindset, right? We have younger anglers coming up. And I think that, and nothing against us old farts, because I'm one of those guys. And I would probably still be fishing the way I did before if I had not gotten into this kayak fishing. Okay. But it's a mindset. And I think that until we change the mind of the older anglers to convert to doing kind of what CPR is all about, I think the younger ones are going to be easier to educate them in this direction, and it's just going to take time.
Yeah,
it's just an evolution. It's a change. It's just like a lake turning over in the winter to the summer, or vice versa from summer to winter. It's going to happen. I don't know when, but I think that the more we can educate these younger folks, and I think a lot that's going on in the college realm and the high school realm, they're seeing what we're doing in these plastic boats. And I think that's what's going to be that new wave is what I call it. So we'll see.
And I think the popularity of kayak fishing will play a role in it. So if people, understand what the kayak fishing is and they're like into it, like, oh, okay, I get it. Oh, look at this huge bass, 24-inch, 25-inch. Then I think that changes the culture, because up until a few years ago, we were just enamored with the weight of the fish, not the length of the fish. So I think as the sport of kayak fishing progresses, I think more people are going to say, hey, I'm just as impressed with a 24, 25-inch fish as I am with a 10-pound fish that may be, the same size. I'm just looking at the length instead of the weight. And I think that'll play a part. You said something that I think when we look at baseball, you mentioned like the old school mentality. I'm a huge fan of baseball. I grew up watching baseball. And even which I consider myself old school, I get tired with this old school mentality of this unwritten rules that just suck the fun out of baseball in some cases. And I see this fraction in the baseball community professionally, where there's mostly by pitchers, they don't want this showcasing. And then there's like, the public kind of enjoys this showcasing, not showboating, no showing disrespect, but showing raw emotions, where when you look at it, 10 years ago, showing raw emotion on a baseball diamond on a professional game was frowned upon kind of thing, especially if you're the offensive player, if you're the batter. Where now I think it's like, yeah, and when you look at it now, it kind of sucks the fun out of it. I don't want anybody showing up the picture, but I want to see some raw emotions.
Right.
When somebody hits a home run and not have to worry about getting hit with 100-mile-per-hour wind on the next at bat. So I think, kind of like translating that to bass fishing, not just kayak fishing, it has to be like, stop making fun of and stop having, being in this box where it's like, if it's not weighed as a 10-pounder, then it doesn't matter what size it is, or like shaming it, because I see it a lot where it's like making fun of somebody's, showing off their catch because it's measured and not weighted. It's just a number. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It's the same fish.
It's the same damn thing. It's just a number. That questionnaire I came up a minute ago, I saw that. And yes, it's a cool concept, having Bluetooth scales linked to TourneyX, and it can be done. Honestly, I just don't think the return on investment is there. That's just my opinion. I don't think let me back up. This is the business side of me.
Yeah, I understand.
Versus the angler. Okay. Because I fish just like you. I was like, you're over there, just like you, and just like everyone else. Okay. I have a local club here that I fish in. And a little about me. Well, that's another side story. But anyway, I'm backing away from that a little bit because I'm actually having surgery in 2 weeks. I'm having some major surgery, and I know I'm not going to be able to compete the rest of the year. So I've decided I'm just going to back away from that, chill out, not fish. But I was second in Angler of the Year points over here. But where was I going? Oh, Bluetooth scale. Sorry. So the business side of me is the amount of money it's going to take to program the Bluetooth in, get the Bluetooth. Think about this. It's not only programming the Bluetooth side into the app, it's that getting those Bluetooth scales out to people and then buying it.
Yeah.
So if I have to invest $10,000 in some code, I'm just throwing a number, I don't know what it would cost, but if I had to invest $10,000 in code and this, that, and other, and then I have to go source out a Bluetooth scale, how am I going to guarantee it's going to get into your hands and you're going to use it?
Yeah.
That makes sense. So we have to be, this is something I've learned over the years. You have to be very cautious about how you spend money. Okay.
Yeah.
And how you clutter the app up. I say clutter. I didn't say that. I don't mean it right. It's not going to clutter it. It's just more stuff to put into the app. So we have to be kind of cautious about how we do that, because making 10 people happy, but yet having 100 people not happy or 1,000 people not happy because I don't mean it to be rude, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
You can lose interest more than gaining interest, right? So we just have to be cautious, and believe me, there's a company out there right now that's got a Bluetooth scale out, and they were a competitor of ours, and I don't know how they're doing now because I hadn't heard much from them. So they already have it out there. If they were going to do well, they would probably be, doing much better than we are. But I don't even hear from them anymore. So it's no different than the little button. You press the button, it marks your location. It's a tool, but is it necessary? No, not really. I could take when you submit a fish, that's a button. I'm capturing your location anyway. Which brings me to some of the things we'll talk about after a while. Hopefully we'll talk about it a while. Some of the new things are coming out in TourneyX app. But yeah, it's a great concept, but you got to put forth the money, and then you got to hope that you get the return on investment. And sometimes it's not worth it.
No, and that's a good point. And shout out to Curtis. That's a great idea in principle. Absolutely. And I can see that I love the idea that Curtis brought up, but I can see, the investment, not just in what you're saying, but all the research, and then making sure that it's not going to crash, or it's minimal, and it's not going to bog down your servers, where now it's going to affect, submission. There's a lot. It's not just the weight scales, that technologies, all the programming and all the research you have to do. To make sure it works.
Right. If we had somebody come and say, hey, we're gonna have 125 anglers fishing with you, 6 times or 8 times a year, and we're willing to put forth the effort to make sure that we fill it up, and we want your Bluetooth scales, absolutely. Because then I can pay it back and then we can open that concept up to everyone else. But the initial investment and then that hope that somebody picks it up and runs with it, it can cost you,
And,
so
go ahead.
Anyway, so it's just making sure we have enough people that want it before we dive into something like that. So
yeah, there's got to be, like you said, cost and demand kind of thing.
Right.
Because I mean, I know what you're saying also is you do this for the love of the sport as well, but you don't want to end up in the poorhouse and having to work as as a licensing electrician till you're 90 because you're now, you have this
right.
You have this debt on something that didn't work.
Well,
so there's a lot of things that go in, but a lot of business decisions.
Right. There's a lot of other things that we need to be spending money on right now that I mean, I have people call me all the time. Hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And it is a very viable question. And yes, it's a very viable option and we need it. We probably would need it, but I have other things that are in line that I've got to work on. I'm hoping to have start on a bracket style tournament. I know that a lot of people want brackets. And so we've never had one, and eventually I want to do that, but I've got about 4 things ahead of that. So hopefully we get these other things taken care of, then we'll mold into some of the other options. And who knows, maybe that down the road we could do that for Curtis and some of the people that want a Bluetooth system, But right now we'll have to hold off on it.
So let me ask you this, because I've had you for an hour and I don't, I want to be mindful of your time. Like you say, you hardly have any time to do anything else. So I appreciate you taking the time. But I wanted to give you a couple of minutes to give us, what is expected. What can we expect for TourneyX in the future? What new features might come out? What might the future for the CPR format might hold?
So in the next week and a half, we're going to release a new app, the new version of the app. What it's going to entail is there's been some things, and once again, I try to put things into the app that's useful, that's a tool for the anglers that they need out there while they're out there fishing. And I try to keep it simple, but I want it to the point too. So one of the things that has really been bothering me for years is I get these calls and they go, "Hey, my GPS is not working. How do I fix that?" Well, I've got to put myself in their shoes. If I was in their shoes, what would I need to do to fix it? Well, first of all, I need to test my phone. And so we need to test our phone and see if the GPS is good or bad, period. That's all you got to worry about. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. So the way that I've been toying with this idea for 2 or 3 weeks is, how do we do that where it's easy? So all we did was we came up with an image checker. So basically, with your camera's phone or inside the app, we have 2 places you can take pictures: with your regular device and then with the app. Mm-hmm. That's all there is. So either one, you open them up, you take a couple of pictures. I don't care if it's the floor, I don't care if it's the moon, it doesn't matter to me what it is. And at this point, it doesn't matter. What I don't want it to be is that 22-inch bass that you need and you don't have GPS location on, and then you get DQ'd for it. So what we've done is, prior to ever fishing in the contest, take your phone, install our app. In the menu area, you swipe over and there's a button that says image checker. Click it. It opens up this thing that says upload image. And it doesn't have to be a fish. It can be, all we're doing is checking the functionality of your phone's internal GPS. That's all we're doing. Nothing else. Take a picture of the floor, the grass, your cat, your dog, whatever, while you're out outdoors. Image checker, open it up, click it, upload that image. You're either going to get a thumbs up or you're going to get a thumbs down. That's as simple as it gets. If you get a thumbs up, then your phone is set properly. Period. You don't have to worry about it. Okay. If you get a thumbs down, that means we didn't get the proper information from your meta tag to go into our database to give you the location that we need. And there's a button on there that says, click here for more information. When you click it, it's going to tell you where to go in your phone and set the correct GPS to turn it on. Go back in and do it again, and keep doing it until you get your GPS where it gives you a thumbs up. That's it. Simple. So it's a simple tool. It's coming out in about a week. That's tool number 1. The other tool is, we were sending out messages like when you catch a fish and you submit it, it says your fish has been accepted. You get a pop-up, a message that comes down on the top of the window of your screen. Well, guess what? When it's gone, so you don't get to read it. When you click it, if you don't read it, then it's gone. Because some people don't have their notifications set properly to hold that message. So I called my programmers. I said, listen, I need a table with a running list of every message that gets pushed to that angler. And I need it to where they can read it at any time they want to read it. So that's what we've done, is we've created a back-end list that if your fish is accepted or submitted, it shows your fish has been submitted. If it's been accepted, there's going to be another push notification. If the director sends out a emergency push notification that says, there's some storms coming, bad storms, you need to take cover, then it'll be in that list as well. But the cool part, there's a little bell icon, and it's going to be the upper left-hand corner, and it'll just start have numbers in it. And you just click on it, open it up, and you can read your list. So we fixed that part, and that'll be out in about a week. Another one that people were complaining about was that when they search for tournaments on TourneyX to register for, there's mixed with nationwide events and local events. Yeah. So we've created a filter in there that it's, so the nationwide events are actually turned off unless you want them. Then you click a button and you search, and it pulls all them in at one time. So it's another little filter that we did. So yeah, we've got a couple little things that are coming out for this push. So we're going to get the Bassmaster Kayak Series over this weekend, and then we'll start getting ready to push it out next week. So
that's awesome. And again, shout out to what you're doing, Dwayne, and appreciate, everything that the hard work that goes in. I know it's a business side of it, but I know also you enjoy it. You have to deal with a lot of things, both on and off the water, that are maybe not the most pleasant interactions, because we get it. Sometimes the app doesn't work, and there's a lot of business decision. Owning a business, like you mentioned, there are times where you just want to throw your hat and give up, and there's times where you feel blessed that you got the community to back you up. So, we want to thank you. And again, thank you for taking the time. And I won't take any more of your time. If there's any tournament directors, anybody interested in, using TourneyX for their tournaments, where can people reach you? What's the best way to get in contact with you to do business with TourneyX? You can
email me at info@tourneyx.com. That's the quickest way. You can message me, of course, find me on Facebook and friend me and message me directly. If you go to tourneyx.com website, my phone number is actually listed in there under I guess it's under the About Us or whatever. If you want to become a director, at the very top of the page on TourneyX, you can request a director account. You do have to have a separate angler account as a director account. You have to have two different accounts. We don't join those together because we want to keep everything kind of separate. So, if you've been an angler and you say, hey, I want to build my own club over here because I think we can get 10, 15, 20 anglers fishing in this club, by all means, man, give me a shout. I can send you a link, or just go by and message, just request that account, and I'll get the email and I actually approve it. Kind of old school. We talk about all this old school stuff. I don't automatically approve everyone. Okay. Because I get a lot of spam directors that want to join this, that, and other, and I'll pick up the phone and call. And it's amazing how many people enjoy the phone call, to be able to just talk to someone. You pick them up, you call, and you say, hey, man, I see you requested for a director account. And they're like, well, yeah, why are you calling? I said, well, I mean, that's what we do. And they actually were happy that we called them. Yeah. Because they like that interaction. I think that it's a lot of things that are missing in this world, and interaction is one of them. So
age of technology has really hampered customer service and just basic common sense, unfortunately.
Yeah, it has. So we pick up the phone and call. We definitely like to do that. So, but yeah, that's it, man. Just find us, message us, give us a shout. We'd love to help you guys out, however you need.
Yeah, and I can attest to this, fishing on Slay Nation, which is small tournaments, regional tournaments and state tournaments. No job is too big or too small for you guys. Like, you treat everybody with the same amount of respect and decency, whether it's a small, local trail or a big national trail. And that's what we appreciate about you, among other things, of course.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I really do. Yeah, there's a lot of good trails out there. There's a lot of good. I mean, we've got Grubby. Grubby's probably been, Grubby with Jim Strunk and those guys that started. I don't know if you know who Grubby is. You may have heard of him or not. Yeah. GRBY. But anyway, Grassroots Bass Yackers or whatever it's called. But anyway, those guys are phenomenal themselves. I mean, they started this little small group called Grubby. Jim Strunk is just down home good guy. He really is. And we appreciate them. And I mean, the list is so long. I would forget somebody and make somebody angry, but we've got directors. I mean, and we just today I got a call from Germany. Blows my mind.
I saw your post. Yeah.
So I get a call from a guy, not call, but I mean, he messaged me from Germany, wanting to run a tournament in Germany. And I was like, wow, this is getting real. You know, we've got Italy, we've got Germany, we've got France, we've got Australia, we've got Sweden. I mean, I'm not saying we got a lot of tournaments there, but they're, you know, they're there, and we certainly appreciate those people as well. And so maybe one day I'll get a chance to go over to Italy and catch a bass.
Yeah, there you go, all over Europe. Well, Dwayne, I'll let you go because I know you, like I said, you're a busy man. I've taken more than an hour away from you from your free time. So thank you so much for joining the podcast and the live show. And again, we really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing what TourneyX has to bring. And hopefully I get to see you in one of those trade shows or on the water someplace. But if not, then, you know, just, you know, we really appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, bud.
For those out there listening or watching, you know, you can subscribe to our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Threads now. I don't know how much I'll be on that Threads thing, but TikTok. So you can follow us on the Bass Kayak and Beers. If you're listening on our MP3 formats, which airs every Monday, and you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, feel free to give us your 5-star reviews. It doesn't cost you anything. It does really help out the growth of the podcast. And hopefully we've done a good show to, you know, that warrants or earned your 5-star reviews. So again, thank you for watching or listening. Have a great night. If you are on the water, please wear your PFDs. If you're having a couple of beers while you're at it, just make sure you drink responsibly. You know, just because it's Bass Kayak and Beers, we're not encouraging people to get, you know, just still stay safe on the water. So again, thank you for listening or watching. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.